What a morning we had today, talking about telling your story. And then I shared with you in the midday service about the power of words and how to use the tongue. And now we have with us an author, a nurse, a public speaker. She sent me a bit of poem about the silver moon the other day, and I was over the moon having listened to that one. She's a combination of British and British, Ugandan, and Trinidadian. I wonder if she's from Tobago, but maybe I think it's Trinidad. So Sister Valarie Olango Kopotsha, very well known. She has her own YouTube channel. She has her own Twitter feed. We're hoping that her number will increase, much higher than President Trump is at the moment. But she's a very popular presenter, very articulate and very concise, but the information that she presents is amazing, that will help to lift you up emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So welcome to our emotional health seminar. Valarie has a natural flair for writing and a passion for words, and that started when she was very, very young. By the way, just let me drop in a little secret. Her sister and I actually, I've known her sister for quite a long time when I was in Leeds. She writes a lot of poetry and reflecting on varied experiences that she has encountered in her life journey. She's married to Tony. And just to let you know, she has her own personal bodyguard who is with her in the studio today.
Oh, okay.
So welcome, Valarie.
Thank you.
Welcome. And we know that we're going to be blessed by the presentation. And I'm looking forward to improved health, healthy living, healthy lifestyle for myself and others as you speak to us on the topic about obesity. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for Valarie and for Tony. We thank you for the ministry. May those who listen today go and check her out on her YouTube channel and see what she presents on her Twitter feed each day. And for those who would like a comforting book, on a poetry book written in Jesus' name, amen. So a window to my soul. So over to you, Sister Valarie.
Well, thank you for that introduction. It was humbling. And I'd just like to say hello to everybody that's watching me at home. Special hello to Croydon Church family. You know, it's bittersweet being in the sanctuary today. Sweet because I haven't been in themselves in a holistic way, meaning mind, body, and soul. So today I'm going to speak to you about understanding obesity. Now, this is a huge topic, but I'm just going to touch on some of the salient points, and I hope that I give you enough information so that you'll be able to make informed choices going forward. So I'm giving you an overview of what I'll be talking about today. I'll be giving you a definition of obesity, discuss about causes of obesity, how we measure it, the consequences, and managing the challenge, so as in what we do going forward. So I would like to say that I spent a lot of time working on this subject, studying it, becoming familiar with it, and this certainly is a topic that holds me accountable because it's not easy to give a talk about obesity if I haven't got my weight in check. And certainly at the beginning of lockdown, going on from the theme from this morning, talking about testimonies and sharing, at the beginning of lockdown, I had cause for concern when I looked in the mirror and stood on the scale. And I had to reacquaint myself with the information that I know. So the thing that I'm saying is that, you know, life is a journey. Sometimes we go up, sometimes we go down. But the most important thing is to even if we fall off the treadmill, if you will, that we get back on. So I'm going to start with a spiritual focus because after all we're in church. And I love this text. It's from Psalms 139, verse 14. It says, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and my soul knoweth right well. And the reason why I love this text so much is the more that I understand science, the more I realize that God made no mistakes. He created us with mechanisms that are supposed to keep us fit and healthy. But unfortunately, in this world with sin and unhealthy food, we kind of lose our way. So that being said, let's launch. And as I did at the end of my presentation last week, and as I think Lauren did today at the end of this morning's health presentation, I'm going to leave you with a challenge. So, get ready. I hope you're up for it, because I certainly am. So the question is, what is obesity? So I'm going to read this technical definition, then I'm going to break it down. They say it's a phenomenon that occurs when ingested energy is greater than expended energy over a long period of time, leading to homeostatic imbalance and increased adiposity. Now that sounds like a whole mouthful right there. What it is, so I'm going to break it down now. It's a phenomenon that occurs when what we eat is more than the energy that we're burning up over a long period of time, and it leads to us putting on weight. Now, the emphasis is really on the fact that it's over a long period of time, because if it was your birthday and you had a big meal and then you went back to healthy eating, that's not what will make you obese. Obesity occurs when we constantly give our bodies too much nutrition and we're not burning it up. However, it's important for us to note that all calories are not equal. So by saying that, I mean, if somebody was so they say the amount of calories that a woman should eat to stay healthy on a daily basis is 2,000 calories. So if somebody was eating 2,000 calories and they were coming from healthy, nutritious food, and somebody was eating 2,000 calories from junk food source, you'd find that with the passage of time, the person who was eating the junk food would be less healthy, even though they've been eating the same amount of calories. Okay. And just a point here to say, not all obese people are unwell, and not all normal weight people are healthy either. So it's very easy just to look at size as a singular measure. However, what we do know is that if somebody is carrying a lot of weight, there is a potential for them to develop other illnesses, and we call these illnesses non-communicable diseases. For example, diabetes and hypertension. And they went further quite recently to define obesity as a chronic relapsing disease that's affecting a rapidly increasing number of people across the world. And the reason why they call it a chronic disease is as opposed to, so in medicine we talk about chronic and acute. An acute disease is a disease of sudden onset, and a chronic disease is one that you have and it lasts potentially for your lifetime. It lasts for a long period of time. So obesity can last for a long period of time. The reason why they call it a relapsing disease is that people can have times of having a healthy weight and then putting on weight and then going back. So at the root of the problem of obesity is this thing that we call the standard American diet, that is abbreviated as SAD. It's also called the Western pattern diet. And the thing about this is a diet based on refined foods, a lot of fried food, there's a lot of refined carbs, a lot of sugar, so food that's not really sustaining. So the reason why obesity is spreading across the world is because you find that in so-called third world countries, they aspire towards the Western lifestyle, and so they end up aspiring towards eating these junk foods, and we see these fast food establishments set up all over the world, and they turn their back on their traditional foods. And this can cause a problem for people because they end up gaining weight. So obesity has become particularly topical in light of COVID-19. Things that we know. We know that being obese doubles the risk of hospital treatment from COVID-19. And we know that it increases the risk of dying by nearly 50%. Okay? And these are people who develop the acute, severe symptoms of COVID-19. We also know that in the UK, they said of 10,465 people critically ill, 73.7% of them were living with overweight or obese. So there's something going on in that mechanism to make us vulnerable. And also patients, even younger patients, these are patients who are younger than 60, who have a BMI that is higher than between 30 and 34, are twice as likely to be admitted to a hospital with COVID-19 symptoms than other people. So you can see that in this current climate with COVID-19, it is important for us to pay attention to our weight. This diagram here just points to the fact that people who are obese had severe outcomes from COVID-19, and they also had, often obesity comes with other chronic illnesses like diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and pulmonary dysfunction, which is problems with your lungs that makes you more vulnerable. And they also talked about social determinants and culture and racial bias affecting people's development of COVID-19. Just so that we don't get lapsed, I just want to remind you of the current UK statistics for COVID-19. So to date in the UK, this was yesterday, 361,677 people confirmed, 41,614 souls lost, and 2,919 cases. And in the UK right now, our R number is greater than 1, which means we all need to be careful and really pay attention to our health. So I'm going to give you some global statistics and global figures about the disease. So they say that by 2025, global obesity prevalence is predicted to reach 18% in women and 21% in men. That's across the globe. They also say of these, so of the people who are obese, an estimated 257 million adults worldwide are forecast to be living with severe obesity. This is with their BMI greater than 35 kilograms per meter squared. And I'm going to go on to tell you what that means a bit more shortly. Okay? And there's been a rapid increase from the projected figures, which means that these numbers are just increasing rapidly. I'm going to just flash up some statistics about the UK so that you know that in the UK in 2016, 61.4% of the population was either overweight or obese. So that's more than half of the population in the UK. And a very sobering piece of information, a third of children who are between the ages of 2 to 15 are overweight or obese. Now, the real issue with this is because obesity comes with potentially other illnesses. If we have children who are living with obesity from the age of, say, 2 to 15, that means that their hearts are going to be under strain, their potential of developing diabetes and other illnesses. So they predict that if this trend continues, the next generations will probably not outlive their parents. For me, this is a sobering point, and it's something that really makes us, should make us reflect. Reducing levels of obesity will save life. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. Now, on my next slide, although there's a lot of information, I'm just going to flag up for you an area that's caused me personal concern. And when I did my master's studies and I was looking into obesity, I studied obesity in the Afro-Caribbean population. And we can see here that 73.6% of black adults in the UK are either overweight or obese. 73.6%? That means that just about a quarter of us are of normal weight. This is not good, because with this comes the risk of developing COVID-19, heart disease, hypertension, stroke, and other forms of cancer that we're going to talk about shortly. So it's really important for us to take this message seriously. You've got your health in your hands. No, I should say you've got your health on your plate. So let's move on. So it costs a lot. It cost the UK government in, these figures were 2011, 5.1 billion to treat people who were overweight or obese. But along with the financial cost, there's a social cost, because people who are obese don't feel confident to go out a lot. There's a psychological cost, because there's often self-loathing. And there is also an emotional cost, because sometimes people feel guilty about what's going on. Okay. I'm going to talk about appetite and hunger, okay? So we were born and built with the mechanism for us to know when we need to eat and when we don't need to eat. I'm going to just throw some words in here. So this is we have hormones in our body that in health drive our eating function. So we have a hormone called ghrelin. I had to get the word out, ghrelin. What ghrelin does is it tells your brain that you're hungry. So it tells you that you're hungry, and then you go looking for food. Once you've eaten that food, the food has come into your stomach. You have a hormone called incretin. Incretin then tells your pancreas that it needs to produce insulin. And insulin is the hormone that helps to reduce the amount of glucose in your circulating blood. So once insulin is like an escort. It's going to take this glucose to different places. It will take it to your muscles. So if your muscles need energy, it will go straight to your muscles. If there's an excess, then some of that will be stored in your liver. And if you really have overconsumed, then that glucose is going to be converted to fat and stored as adipose tissue, fatty tissue. And then what happens is when you're full, the hormone leptin then tells your brain it's time to stop eating. And this is what happens in health. But what we are finding is that for some reason, people are not feeling the impulse to stop eating, and so we have overeating. And this can happen for many reasons. So I'm going to just scan through another diagram I have here about obesity. Really what this diagram shows us, I'll summarize it, is that if we are sleep deprived, then the hormones ghrelin and leptin don't work in the way that they're supposed to. And so you're sleep deprived, you feel hungry, and also if you're up all night, there's increased opportunity for you to eat. And because of that, you're going to take in more calories. If you're taking more calories, you're going to end up putting on weight because you probably haven't got the energy to move around. And also, if you're not rested, you can feel more stressed. If you're more stressed, then you have a hormone called cortisol that's going to go up. And what cortisol helps you to do is hang on to your fat. So you get yourself into a bit of a random circle. And this is why you find that a lot of the time when people work night shift, they can end up putting on weight. And this results in us eating more than we need to. But there are other reasons why we eat more than we need to. It could be because of depression. When people are depressed, they eat to feel better. And people often crave refined carbohydrates because they boost the mood. And then we get into the cycle of addiction that I talked about last week when I talked about the dangers of refined sugar. And also when people are sad and they eat a lot, it gives them like a feeling of comfort, a bit like a baby gets when their mother feeds them. And it's as if the food is hugging you from inside because you've got that pressure on your diaphragm. And so we need to be aware and present so that when we're sad, we deal with our sadness and we don't feed it with food. And also sometimes people eat poor quality foods which don't keep them satisfied, and so they keep eating and eating. Boredom is another reason. In lockdown, people have been bored and they've just sat at home with their favourite snack foods and they kept eating. And if you're eating and you're not moving, you'll put on weight. So lack of exercise will make you put on weight. Some people have genetic predisposition to carry weight, but they say genetics is the gun, but lifestyle is the trigger. So regardless of your genetics, if you make the effort to keep yourself fit and healthy, it's not a fait accompli that you're going to put on weight. And ethnic tendencies, as I mentioned before, adopting a Western lifestyle can make people put on weight as well. Stress is a biggie. I mentioned it before. Stress drives up your cortisol levels, makes you crave carbs, and it also, you have a molecule called neuropeptide Y that's released from your nerve cells during stress that facilitates fat storage. So it's important for us to manage our emotions as well. Now, this is a big one I want to flag up, and it's about vitamin D deficiency. They find that people who are obese experience vitamin D deficiency. So vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. It's stored in your adipose tissue, in your fat tissue. So if you carry a lot of weight, the vitamin D that you ingest ends up being stored in your fat tissue. It's not in your circulating blood, so your body is unable to utilize it. And it plays a vital role in the immune system. So those of us who have darker skin, it's recommended that we actually take, everybody really, but people with darker skin especially should take oral vitamin D to supplement your meals so that it will help to keep your immune system boosted. So people put on weight because they just don't understand what good food is. They're not aware of what a healthy diet is. And there can be environmental factors, like every time you walk past a fast food restaurant and you smell what they're cooking, it might make you hungry and you might end up walking in there. And lifestyle changes because people are just not exercising enough. Also poverty, people who have low incomes sometimes struggle to buy healthy food. And there are other behavioural factors that can affect things that we've already talked on, but one that I really want to pull out from here is disorganised eating. If you don't have structure to your meals, you'll put weight on. And sometimes the medications that we take can help us put on weight. So in the interest of time, I'm going to skip through a few slides because I really want to get to the crux of it. And I'll take some questions now.
The first question that has come through is, can obesity lead to cancer?
Yes. Yes, it can. And hopefully, if I get time, I'll go through the kinds of cancers. But it can lead to, I think, colon cancer, breast cancer. So definitely, yes, it can.
Okay, thank you. And the second question, kind of statement is, can you become obese if you're a vegetarian? ? Does stopping eating meat influence weight gain? And then a statement is made, a friend gained around 10 kilograms since turning a vegetarian. She used to eat a lot of meat each week.
Okay, so I hope I remember the parts, but I'm going to start. I think this will answer everything. So there's a vegetarian meaning not eating meat, but a lot of vegetarians are carbotarians, which means they eat loads of carbs and they don't know how to get the protein from the vegetable foods. So if you're eating a lot of carbohydrate, what will happen is that the way that you eat carbs in your body, and the carbs are converted to glucose. Okay? Glucose then, excess glucose is stored as fat. So it's easy to see why somebody who stopped eating meat and went to a vegetarian diet, who did not understand how to balance their vegetarian diet, could end up putting on weight. Does that answer everything?
Yes, I think that does. Thank you very much. And the last question for now is, what happens to the ghrelin, I think if I pronounced that right, when people don't eat during the day while working?
So ghrelin is the hormone that tells you that you need to eat. So if you're not eating, nothing really happens to it. You may have an awareness of it, or people who fast will know that sometimes this hunger thing, it comes in waves. So you'll have a time when you feel hungry and a time that you don't. And to be honest, not eating is a lot less dangerous than eating too much. And there's a lot of research about intermittent fasting and the benefits of fasting. So if you're working in the day and you can't eat, that really is not a big issue as long as you eat a balanced meal when you can, and also try not to eat too late at night, because it's not great to go to bed on a full stomach.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to skip through. Time is flying. Going to talk about, perceptions of obesity, and really that says that in different cultures, obesity means different things. In some cultures, being overweight is something that people aspire to. And it's taken a lot of time for healthcare professionals to work with people so that they understand what the challenges are of carrying too much weight. But this is the bit that everybody really needs to know, and it's about how to measure obesity, because we need to understand where things sit with us. So they talk about body mass index, and there are various body mass index calculators out there. I know there is on the NHS website. So it is height per meter squared. That is a mathematical calculation. So we know that a BMI of 18.5 to 24.9 is within the normal range. BMI of 25 to 29.9 is considered overweight, and everything over 30 is obese. And in the next diagram, I'm not sure if you can see it well from home, but this is just explaining that as BMI goes up, the incidence or the possibility of developing disease such as diabetes or hypertension increases. So just something to bear in mind. But the bit that we all can do is measure our waist. And waist measurement is a great indicator of whether or not we're at risk. And carrying belly fat is the biggest indicator of if you're at risk, because what happens is in the middle section you have your liver there, and people tend to carry a lot of fat around their liver. So your health is at risk, men, if your waist measurement is over 94 centimeters or 37 inches, and women if your waist measurement is over 80 centimeters or 31.5 inches, you're at risk, and you're at high risk. So this is not to be taken lightly. If your waist measurement, men, is over 102 centimeters or 40 inches, and women, if your waist measurement is over 88 centimeters or 34.5 inches, okay? And they say that overweight individuals with a large waist over 40 inches for men and 34.6 inches for women have the same risk of developing diabetes as obese people. Now, some people may carry a lot of weight around their middle, but they may not be obese. If you carry weight around your middle and you're not obese, you still have a high incidence of developing, high risk of developing diabetes. So what I'm telling you is, please acquaint yourself with your numbers, know your numbers. I know mine. Be concerned about obesity. Obese individuals are more likely to develop type 2 diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke, kidney disease, and certain kinds of cancers to answer the question. For example, cancer of the esophagus. They're more likely to develop breathing problems like sleep apnea, fatty liver disease, gallbladder disease, and problems with pregnancy. And now specifically for our gents, obese men are more likely to develop cancer of the colon, cancer of the rectum, and cancer of the prostate. None of these sound like good news to me. Obese women are more likely to develop cancer of the breast after menopause, because after menopause our hormones change, cancer of the gallbladder, cancer of the uterus, and also cancer of the cervix. And this is just some information that I picked up that I thought really kind of focuses in on the cancers, because the question was asked about, are you likely to, can obesity help increase the risk of developing cancer? So on this slide we can see 13 cancers associated with weight and obesity: thyroid, breast, liver, upper stomach, gallbladder, pancreatic, colorectal, uterine, ovarian, kidney, multiple myeloma, adenocarcinoma of the esophagus, and meningioma. And listen, to study this topic and to understand the grip that food has on us really has brought me to a different level of awareness. And it's just so important. I'm pleading to you right now for you to take care of your health. There's another condition that people talk about, it's called metabolic syndrome. And it is when obesity coexists with other conditions like high blood pressure and diabetes as well. And metabolic syndrome is often associated with being overweight and a lack of physical activity. And because somebody has metabolic syndrome, there is an increased risk of them getting heart disease, stroke, and other conditions that can affect the blood vessels. So it just shows how important it is. But it sounds like doom and gloom. I'm not here to depress anybody. I'm here to uplift. So there is good news that a reduction of between 5% to 10% of body weight leads to halving the risk of diabetes and obesity-related cancer deaths. Just 5%, between 5 to 10%. Come on, I said at the beginning that I was going to give you a challenge. I hope now that you're starting to imagine what the challenge could be about. So I'm going to talk to you in the last part of this talk about what we can do. What can we do about being obese? Firstly, you need to change the way that you think about food. Eat for sustenance as opposed to eating for comfort, and address the underlying issues. Now, I've been known to be a comfort eater sometimes. I'm not ashamed to share my truth with you. But now what I do, if I'm feeling sad or a bit worried, before I go looking for the food, I sit down and I ask myself, Valarie, what is this really about? Sorry, are you really hungry? Or do you need to pray? Or do you need to clean the house? You need to do something to take your mind to something productive as opposed to sitting down and eating. So staying full is about, they talk about high density and low density foods, okay? So if foods are high density, that means that they have a low water content, low fiber content, and they're high in calories, and these would be like processed foods. So people often find it so easy to sit down and eat like junk food. The problem with these foods are when you eat them, you want more and more and more because of the fact that they have such a high carb content. So what happens is you eat them and they very quickly are converted through the digestive process to glucose. That glucose goes into your bloodstream. You get a sugar high, which excites your neurotransmitter dopamine. So you get the sugar high. And then your insulin rushes out into your bloodstream, mops up this glucose, and then your blood sugar comes down quite quickly, and then you crash. You get this high and the low. Now, the problem is that when you crash, you just want to eat more. And that's why these high calorie density foods are so dangerous to us, because it means that we just can't get enough of them. So we just keep putting too many calories in our bodies, and we're not exercising enough to burn them up. So staying full is about food density. So I'm asking you to avoid the high density foods. But you know what? The brain doesn't like vacuums. So once you take something away, you need to give yourself something else to fill that gap, or you'll just be feeling kind of empty and lost. So we say replace the high density foods with low density foods. So low density foods are foods that have a high water content. They also have a higher fiber content. They, when they're talking about being lower in calories, some of them are, but also they're generally unprocessed foods. And the thing about these is that they take longer to digest. And I would actually throw in with that concept that we need to eat some healthy fats. So things like avocado is great for you, some nuts, but raw nuts tend to be healthier than eating the roasted nuts. And if you like nuts, you'll know that the biggest test of character is to try to eat one peanut. The thing about that is that you just keep eating. And so all these kind of roasted nuts fall under the category of high density foods as well. So, let's replace the high density foods with low density foods. Now, I'm going to move on and show you what a healthy plate looks like. I've chosen to use a vegan plate here. Not everybody's vegan, but the reason why I put a vegan plate here is because I know that a lot of our church members aspire to eat less meat. So I'm just going to give you an idea of what a healthy plate would look like if you're a vegan. And on the topic of eating meat, because I know that some people do, I think that what I would say, I'm not promoting meat eating, but what I would say, if you're going to eat meat, eat organic meat. And you soon find that you're not going to eat as much meat if you're eating organic that you would eat if you were just eating like standard meat. Eat the best quality food that you can afford. But back to this plate, on this plate we have here, we've got some grains, sorry, I want to use a laser. Yeah, here we have grains, here we have nuts and seeds, we've got legumes here, got vegetables and fruits. I would say plan your meals in advance, and notice at the side they advise vegans to substitute vitamin B12 and vitamin D. I spoke already about the importance of taking additional vitamin D to boost your immune system, and also because people like me who have melanated skin, who are living in the UK where there is low sunlight exposure, tend not to get as much vitamin D into our bodies as we need. And the added complication of that is if you're working in an office and you're not out in the sun all the time, you really do need to supplement for your health. So plenty of fruit and vegetables, starchy foods such as bread, rice, potatoes. But do you know what? I think the older we get, the less carbs we actually need, depending on your work, I'd have to say. But people have quite sedentary lifestyle really need to address how many carbs they're putting on the plate. Earlier, Pastor mentioned that I'm of mixed heritage, meaning my dad's from Uganda, my mum's from Trinidad. And one thing I really notice about the West Indian diet as opposed to the diet that people eat in northern Uganda is the amount of processed carbs that we eat. Macaroni, cheese, and the rice, and all the cakes you can think of. And this is one of the challenges that we have when we're trying to manage our weight. It's how we can honor our heritage and enjoy the foods that are traditional for us and still eat healthy foods. And a shameless plug, we have a vegan plant-based cooking class, and we explore ways of cooking healthily there as well. So going on, they say these recommendations are from the NHS website when they talk about meat, fish, eggs. But if you're a vegan, you'll be eating more pulses, you'll be eating nuts as well for your protein source. And there is something about eating food that looks pretty much as close to what it was. Let me run that back, because even I didn't understand what I said. Sometimes people are a vegetarian and vegan, and they eat all the sausages and all these synthetic meats. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have any in your freezer for a busy day when you come home and you can't cook. But let's really try to learn how to cook food from scratch. Because when you're cooking your own food, there's less added things in it. You can control what goes into your food that way. I mentioned already healthy fats, so that would be, to me, coconut oil, olive oil, avocados, nuts. They say some milk and dairy foods. That's what the NHS says. I am not. My body never got on with dairy. And avoid junk food and unhealthy fats from your fried crisps and chips and all of those foods. So they do say that we should strive to eat at least 5 different types of fruit and vegetables a day. And I'm going to add to that and say, try to eat more vegetables than fruits, and try to include cruciferous vegetables in your diet. And by cruciferous vegetables, I'm talking about green leafy vegetables like kale, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, things like cauliflower. These are just so good for your body. So try to include some sort of a cruciferous vegetable with every meal. So it's important that you allow your stomach to rest in between meals. So you eat your meal, and then they say that if you eat a well-balanced meal, it should take about 3 to 4 hours for that meal to digest, and then eat another meal. And something that is very topical is intermittent fasting. And they say, and I alluded to it earlier, is when people kind of eat within what they call an eating window. It could be from 6 to 8 hours, and then outside of that, they're not eating. And there are certain advantages to eating this way, although it's not applicable for everybody. So I'll give you an example. You wouldn't want your children to intermittent fast, because or anybody who's sick or pregnant, or anybody who has any probably elderly people, that's not for them. Although what it's good to do is have disciplined eating. But one of the benefits of fasting is that when your body's fasting, when you're unfed, it gives you a chance for you to actually go to your fat stores for energy. And so it can burn up your fat. So it's one way of keeping your weight under control. And also if you're eating between a fasting window, say like if you start eating at midday and your last meal is at 6 o'clock in the evening, you only get to eat 2 meals there. And it's when your body is fasting also, your body's able, there's a process called autophagy. I've pronounced it right, autophagy. And during autophagy, what happens is the cells in your body, they kind of do spring cleaning. So if is there any debris there, any cells that are not functioning well, your body will cleanse and clean itself. So that's one of the advantages of intermittent fasting. I'll say it again, it's not for everybody. And if you're concerned and you have any underlying conditions, you do well to speak to your doctor first. But they also say that it can be a very good way for pre-diabetic people to reverse from being pre-diabetic and to go back to maintaining their blood sugars normally. So what else can you do about being obese? Look, I know this sounds so standard, but drink water. Avoid fizzy, sugary drinks and drink water. Your body needs water, it cleanses you. Sometimes we eat because we mistake thirst for hunger, that's what I mean to say, and so we end up eating. So I always say a little tip, if you feel hungry, I'm not good with cold water, so I would drink like maybe some tea or maybe some just water that's at room temperature and just see how that feels in my stomach. Now, if I'm still hungry in 30 minutes or so, then maybe I would find something to eat. And even when you're snacking, look for healthy snacks, not this junk food, a bit of fruit. I'll give you an example of a healthy snack. You can eat maybe some apple and some nut butter together. So dip some chopped apple in your nut butter and eat that. That will keep you satisfied. So in terms of how much water they recommend you drink, most of the papers will say about 2 litres, but people go up to 3.7 litres per day. But you have to bear in mind that if you have any underlying medical conditions that could affect your cardiac tolerance, then you need to stick to the fluid restrictions that your clinicians have given you. Look, I need to touch on this. It's exercise. What can you do about being obese? You need to move your body a bit more. We, in the West, we have quite sedentary lifestyles. I mentioned to you at the beginning of lockdown when I stood on my bathroom scales and frightened myself, it was because I realized that in a working day, what I would do is get up, get myself ready at home, walk down the stairs, get my lunch, go sit in my car, drive for a few hours, get to the location that I was going to, stand up and talk and teach and get back home, drive home and feel really tired. So it's important for us to be active. Exercise boosts your mood, it helps you to lose weight, it strengthens your bones, it's all of those good things that we all need. So we have some recommendations from the NHS website, a minimum of 150 minutes of moderate exercise a week, or it could be 5 30-minute sessions. This is for adults, but they say that if you can't fit that much in, then you can do it in small bursts of 10 minutes at a time, or you could do 75 minutes of vigorous intensity activity a week, or a combination of moderate and vigorous. And there's a lot out there about HIIT exercise, and I'm sure that one of our speakers who will be speaking about exercise will cover this better, because this is not my area of expertise. I just exercise because I know that I need to, and I've certainly experienced benefits from exercising. Get your sleep. About between 7 to 9 hours is great for adults. Just to say here that, as I mentioned before, if we're not sleeping well, then we're not able to make good decisions about what we need to eat, and we can end up overeating. So it's nearly time for the challenge. Nearly time for the challenge. Have you got any questions before I jump into the challenge?
Yeah, there's one question is, I was always advised to eat like a king in the morning, like a queen for lunch, and a pauper for dinner, and try not to eat after 7 p.m. Is this useful advice?
That is fabulous advice. Stick with it. Whoever advised you was a really insightful person. Good advice.
And the next question, if I am not what is considered fat, can I be obese?
No. Well, listen, obesity is a measure. Well, let me try. BMI is height per meter squared, okay? So you may not be, so no, the answer is no, because it's about being overweight, right? So if you're not overweight, you're not obese. But that doesn't mean that you're healthy just because you're slim. Because there's some people who don't put the fat on externally, but they eat a lot of junk. And if you were to only look inside their arteries, they'd be full of fatty deposits that they call atherosclerosis. So it's important for all of us not to think that, for nobody to think they've got a pass on this. We all have to be conscious about our health. So I saw a question come up. It was about sparkling water. Are you going to ask me that one?
Yes, you can take that one now. It says, can you drink sparkling water?
Can you? That's a good
As
question.
opposed to...
Ideally not, because it's carbonated beverage. So ideally not. I mean, the ideal is pure water. That's the ideal. Now, sparkling water is clearly less harmful than fizzy, sweet and carbonated drinks. But the ideal is, and this is my personal opinion, is not, but then it's up to you. But even if you were, you wouldn't want to drink it regularly, because it can affect your digestion as well.
Thank you. Another question is eating too much fruit bad for you?
So too much. I want to ask the question, how much is too much? But I'm just going to go with it and say, eating fruit. So too much of anything is not great, okay? The problem with eating an excessive fruit is that we will be converting the fruit to glucose. And excess glucose gets stored as fat. So if you look at the previous slide, I showed you what a balanced meal was. In that balanced meal, there was some fruit, but that fruit wasn't the only thing that they were eating. So by all means, eat your fruit, enjoy your fruit. God gave us fruit and there are healing nutrients in it, but let's exercise some balance in what we're doing. And I think if you're trying to lose weight, then you would want to reduce the amount of fruit that you're eating, and specifically some fruit have more sugar than others. So the fruits that are really great for you are berries, so your blueberries and raspberries and strawberries. Berries are great for you, but they're a little bit tart as well, and a little bit sharp. And so those would be the fruits that I would concentrate on, and then eat the others, but probably not in such large proportions.
Thank you. And the last question we have here is, what are good nuts to eat?
Good nuts to eat would be nuts like walnuts. Walnuts are great for you because they're high in omega-3. Almonds are good for you, and everything in moderation. Macadamia nuts can be good for you. And also, I want to plug some great seeds that you can eat as well, like pumpkin seeds are great, sunflower seeds are great, and also things like including chia seeds and flax seeds are also really good as well.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to go on because we're getting to the challenge. I'm excited. Are you excited? Oh dear. So I'm just saying that the challenge of obesity will only be solved if we make a commitment to changing our lifestyle. There is no other way. It doesn't get fixed just by hoping to lose weight. My prayer for you is that you prosper and be in good health. And I know that this topic can be quite emotive and it can touch nerves, but I want you to know that this has come from a place of love. So before we make any changes in our life, it's really important for us to understand what's in it for us. So this is a question for you. If you're thinking about changing the way that you eat, what's in it for you? Because we know if your why is strong enough, you'll always find a way how to do it. And now for the challenge. I wish I had a drum roll, I do not. The challenge is to change one thing. Don't want you to change everything, just change one thing. Look at your diet and ask yourself, what can I eat less of? Maybe it's those crisps. Get rid of the crisps. Eat some cut up vegetables instead. And when you're eating them, just remember why you're doing it. You're doing it because you want a healthy life. It's not just about living long, but it's about living a healthy life where you can be of service to your fellow man and you can serve God. So as I wind up, I want you to know that I know that change is not easy. They say it's easier to convince someone to change their religion than their diet. And weight loss is not an instant thing. And it can take up to 3 months to see the effects. So when you're making changes, just stick with it. And I like this quote, "Forgive me. I want to tell you to stay with this process." I heard Denzel Washington give a motivational speech, and in it he said, "Fall down 9 times, get up 10." So by that I'm saying that when you're trying to change your lifestyle, there will be times when you fall into old habits, but don't give up, get up, keep going. It happens to the best of us. So that really is everything. That's what I said that I would cover today. I know I've covered it. I hope that you've benefited from it. And all that I have to tell you is your destiny is in your hands. You get to decide.
Well, Sister Valarie, thank you very much for your presentation. And it's been very informative. And I'm sure we will all now rush home and put some of these tips into practice and be better for it. And thank you very much, and may God continue to bless you as you serve and as you minister in your capacity.
Thank you.